What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Film Room Podcast. This is episode 4. I'm your host, Joe Baress, along with my co-host, Joby Fawcett. Joby, how we doing, man?
Well, Joe, we're quite busy. We're really getting into the heart of the fall sports season here. We have a lot of big events going on this week, and we had a great weekend of high school football and really some great achievements by athletes in various sports at the high school level as we're really picking up steam here in the 2024 fall sports season.
Absolutely, Joby. Let's get right to it. We had a lot of great performances this week, like you said, and we are actually joined by our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week, Weston Yannone. Weston, how we doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, thanks so much for joining the show. Let's talk about your performance. Weston is a sophomore quarterback who ran for 155 yards and 3 touchdowns, including the game-winning touchdown in the final minute as Susquehanna rallied to beat Dunmore, a power program 25-21 for, I believe, the first time beating Dunmore since 1998. First of all, congratulations. And, just let's start there. You guys beat Dunmore the first time in a long time. I mean, looking back on it, it's obviously been a couple days now. How does that feel?
It still feels amazing. I mean, even right now at practice, the team's still full of energy and excited on how we won. I mean, that's going to go down in the history books of Susquehanna, and I'm glad I was a part of it.
Weston, it's Joby. How are you? Good to talk to you here today after watching that incredible performance on Saturday. So things started off, we had a pretty good rainstorm, and you and your teammates, especially on the offensive side of the ball, had some real trouble moving the ball in the first quarter. Dunmore jumped out to that quick 14-0 lead. And I asked you this after the game, but I really want you to elaborate on it if you can. How difficult was it to be facing a 2-touchdown deficit so early against a team that's beaten your program so often in the past, to not say, oh, here we go again. We're playing Dunmore. It's just another game and it's another loss. How did you keep the confidence on the sideline and really turn everything around in that second quarter and into the second half?
So when we went into that game, we had a totally different playbook than we thought we were going to have. And it turned out in the second quarter, our simplest plays were the ones that were working, and we stuck to those. The team really came together in that second quarter and said, we can beat this team. At halftime, we even said to ourselves, this team, we aren't tired. They're starting to get tired, and we knew we could beat that team, and we fought hard till the last couple of seconds of the game.
Weston, one of the things I found pretty interesting about, reading Joby's story about the game, you called an audible that led to the game-winning touchdown. What does, you're only a sophomore. What kind of preparation goes into week in and week out to be able to make an audible call like that?
I've been working hard all off season and watching a lot of film on how to read defenses. And I looked at Dunmore's defense and their weak points that whole week leading up on film. And I knew their weak points. And that last drive, it came to my mind on what we needed to do to win. And a couple audibles going down, and I saw an opening on Veer right, and I knew that D-end was going to bite because he was crashing hard all game. He did bite, and I pulled it, and we scored for the game winner.
Weston Yannone from Susquehanna is the Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week this week. 155 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, including 2 in the fourth quarter, and the game winner. Weston, so your dad, Phil, is the offensive coordinator there at Susquehanna, and I can remember back when he played, I've been covering high school football a long time, and he was more of a defensive guy, but he's really got an instinct about offensive football. But I did find it interesting. He had designed a pretty interesting offense up there that does reflect back a little bit on some Veer.
Joby, you cut out. We are here with Weston Yannone, our Athlete of the Week. Joby, do we have you back? I don't think we have you. All right. So, Weston, one thing I was going to ask you is, it's a massive win against Dunmore. How do you got Holy Redeemer this week, and then you've got a slate of Lakeland, Riverside, Old Forge, Lackawanna Trail. How do you refocus after a game like this?
So after a game like this, obviously the energy and positivity is all going to be high. And going into Redeemer, we know we can't take Redeemer lightly because we have before and that outcome's never good. So we know we're going to have to take it to Redeemer, and our homecoming game's Lakeland. So we know that's going to be a dogfight and we got to pull out that win. And Riverside's a very strong team this year, and we know we're going to have to come out all these teams we got on the plate next.
Absolutely. Joby, do we have you?
Joe,
Yes.
let me ask you a question, since spam phone calls that I continually get on a daily basis must have muted me in my very extensive questioning of Weston Yannone. At what point did you lose me, Joe, so I can recap that question?
So it was around where you said the offense that was implemented, and then
Okay, so Weston, yes, perfect. All right, so your dad's, as I said, was more of a defensive player, but he has really come up with a nice, interesting offensive system up there at Susquehanna, and it also implements that veer offense that Coach Dick Bagnall made so famous up there. So tell me how you have kind of embraced this offensive system and how much fun you're having playing under your dad's guidance.
I mean, our offense it's very interesting offense, but our whole team knows it by heart. We practice the same plays inside and out, and we'll add a few more plays here and there, but we know those plays inside and out no matter what. And Coach Bagnall is very proud of how our offenses ran, and he was very happy after that Dunmore game.
Absolutely. Your team had a big performance. Obviously, you had a big performance. What teammate impressed you the most this week?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'd probably say Brody Ace.
And why is that?
Brody Ace, past couple games, hasn't been on his A game totally, but he's been doing well. But this game really showed how he stepped up on defense and offense and had a couple hard runs on that last drive, and he made a lot of good tackles to end the game. And I was very proud of him.
Weston, I've got to ask you, because I was at the game, of course, and it was very exciting for you and your teammates and the cheerleaders and the whole Susquehanna community. Early in that game, you had a huge interception and returned it 95 yards for a touchdown, but it got called back because the referees had called that you pushed off on the receiver to gain position and catch the ball. But I thought, even though that play was called back, and it wasn't going to be a touchdown anyway because there had been a block in the back down the field, I think that shifted the momentum, didn't you? I mean, couldn't you feel a sense that your teammates really kind of got energized by that play? And then from there, I think you really played an outstanding game.
Yeah, I think that energized the team and switched the whole, this isn't going to be a blowout to Dunmore. I think that gave our team hope and said, we can beat this team, and they have flukes too. They're not a perfect team.
Yeah, Weston, you guys had a great week. One team you had a better week than is the New York Football Giants, which I see that you're actually a fan of, and your whole family. After week one, what are you thinking of the Giants this year?
I think they definitely need to get rid of Daniel Jones as QB. I'd go with that first and then go from there.
Absolutely.
It's funny, Weston, because you had such a great celebratory situation on Saturday, and then you go to Sunday. I'm sure you're all hyped up for the opening of the NFL season, and before you know it, the Giants are looked horrendous in those uniforms, and secondly, then played about as bad as they looked. I mean, I had a coach back when I played, Coach Stan Case, who always used to preach, if you want to play good, you got to look good. And, clearly the Giants didn't understand that. But so how tough was that for you to come down and get so frustrated after what was a great weekend for you and the teammates?
I think this week we're going to have to work really hard and prove to Redeemer and Lakeland next week. It's going to be a hard 2 weeks that we're the real deal, this team this year. And Giants, obviously, they're going to have a bad year. I can already tell. But with Daniel Jones at QB, I would not expect them to win more than 5 games. But.
And maybe they can get the number 1 pick.
Yeah, maybe. That's what we're going for.
Absolutely. So I think that's all I got for you, Weston. Joby, do you have anything else for Weston?
I have one more thing for Weston. Now, listen, he comes from a very athletic family, Joe.
Yeah.
His dad, obviously, I mentioned already, was an all-star defensive lineman for Susquehanna in the early 2000s. His mom, Weston, correct me if I'm wrong, but your mom was an outstanding track and field athlete at Susquehanna, and your aunt, Teresa Covert, is probably one of the best, if not the best, female athlete to compete here in Northeast Pennsylvania during her time. So you run track in the spring, you play football. What's the competitive spirit in this family like?
The competitive spirit in this family is amazing. I mean, I had a couple uncles that played football, and they were pretty good, and they went under Bagnall. And my mom, she was a good track athlete. My dad, he played football, and they all love sports. They all love any sport, and they're glad I get to play and stand out in all the sports I do.
And listen, you are an outstanding track and field athlete as well. You set the school record in the 100-meter dash in the spring. That record had stood since the late 1980s. And so how do you bring track and field with you into the football realm? I'm obviously being the quarterback, and you do a lot with your leg, but you're also a good throwing quarterback. But how does track kind of carry over into football for you?
Track carries over into football for me because it helps me work and stay in shape, obviously, through the spring and gets me ready for summer conditioning. It gets me a lot faster. I go to a trainer in Allentown for my speed, and plus track, it helps a lot.
Absolutely. Weston, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for dealing with the technical difficulties, the spam calls. And hey, listen, our teams are 0-1 as well. I'm a Packers fan. Joby's a Rams fan. So, hey, we're all 0-1, my friend.
Yeah.
Could be a long season for all three of us, Joe. Thanks for mentioning it.
I had to bring it up. Weston, hey, thanks so much. Our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week, Weston Yannone. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you, Weston.
So that was Weston Yannone from Susquehanna, football quarterback, our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week. The interview that he did with our colleague Scott Walsh will be in Tuesday's paper, and you could listen here as well. Obviously, you know that. I got to stop saying that, Joby.
Well, Joe, it's funny because anytime I don't want to pick on anybody, but it's always a funny observation I make when I'm at these football games that are being some of the local stations.
Yep.
And they make announcements from the press box to remember that this game is being televised. Well, yeah, but they're at the game.
Exactly.
Well, why do they need to know it's on TV?
I'll just go home then.
Well, yeah. Heck, if I knew that, I would have stayed home.
In the driving without the driving rain.
But that's kind of what you remind me of every time you say that. You could always listen here. Well, yeah, they just did.
Just like we're getting rid of the word shout out, we'll get rid of me saying that every episode. So
you're okay, Joe. You're working through kinks. I love it.
That's right. So I guess a little behind the scenes stuff here. We always have an Athlete of the Week ballot that we send out to the guys that we vote on. And this week was, frankly, it was tough.
Lots of good candidates on this list, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, what I want to start off with is just like, I golf here and there, and I can't fathom these numbers that Robby Lucas put up this week from Abington Heights. He had 2 eagles, 3 birdies, and shot a school record 729 at Glen Oak in a win against Honesdale. Follows that up with 5 birdies, shooting a 234 at Elkview in a win over Valley View. I mean, if I shoot bogey golf, Joby, I'm happy. I mean, this kid has been just added another big week to his golf campaign.
Joe, I always want to caution you on overly criticizing your mini putt-putt golf scores. Okay, listen, I know you're quite the golfer. You don't have to tell our audience brag, but yeah, no, listen, I couldn't hit those shots if it was mini golf, and I might not be able to hit those shots if it was in a video game. I am not a golfer by any stretch of the imagination, nor do I pretend to be. So I try to protect our coveted golf courses in the area and stay off the links. But listen, I've spoken about this already, about the kind of athlete Robby Lucas is. He's very determined young man, and he's a very big, strong, physical kid. I'm certain that he drives the ball off the tee extremely well, and that leads to good scores at these local golf courses. I mean, he's got the complete package in the golf course, no question about it.
Absolutely. Joby, I think I've hit your house before at Scott Green's, so.
Joe, very nice of you, too, to let everyone know exactly where I live, just in case anybody wants to throw anything in my front yard or backyard, for that matter.
That is my bad. I messed that one
okay,
up.
Joe.
So another great performance this week of one of our really good multi-sport athletes, Tommy Clark, Dunmore soccer. He had a milestone this week. He had 4 goals in a win over Mountain View, had 2 assists in a win over Mid-Valley, and 4 goals, including the 100th of his career. So just a great milestone for a really solid athlete in our league.
Joe, Tommy Clark, he's one of those young men who seems like he's been around forever, because quite frankly, he's been around forever, probably for the last 4 years, where he's been an outstanding varsity athlete, even ever since he was a freshman. He was a great track and field star. He was a cross country star. He's won state medals at both of those competitions. Of course, he's a great soccer player. You look at the career numbers, 100 goals. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, he's also going to the best academic institution on the East Coast, that being Lafayette College. So congratulations to him on that. And I certainly hope he has a much better academic record at Lafayette than I had when I was there, but I wish him the very best of luck. And he is a great, great soccer.
Well, the bar's very low there, Joby, right? I don't know.
That's correct.
So he had a great week. We've got Lakeland's Emily Black cross country. She won the Lackawanna County Commissioners Invitational on Saturday at McDade. She also finished second in a league meet against Abington Heights, North Pocono, and Valley View. Also at the Commissioners, Valley View's Riley Mackerel finished second to lead her team to the team title. So great weeks by them. Let's move on to, let's touch on girls soccer really quick. There was a great matchup between Valley View and Abington Heights, 2 power programs in the Lackawanna League. Eva Canaveri and Maya Cesarini scored as Valley View beat Abington Heights 2-1 in a big matchup. I could have pronounced both of their names wrong, so I apologize. But so that's what we did in girls soccer. Now, Joby, I could kind of let you talk a little bit about, these are a couple of your sports that you cover, one of about 7. So Cara Evans of Montrose came up with another big win this week. I believe you are going to have a story on her in Tuesday's paper.
Yeah, Joe, so you know what sometimes gets lost in the high school girls tennis season is, and I shouldn't say it gets lost because that would indicate that I'm not doing my job properly, but we have had a couple of really terrific individual tennis players over the course of certainly my career here in covering the sport in this Times-Tribune. But, most recently we've had some great players. Carissa Gigerelli from Riverside, a state champion. She had a great career, but most of the attention during the season goes to players from Scranton Prep and Abington Heights, with good reason. Those are the best players. They're the best teams year in and year out. They've won numerous district championships, and Scranton Prep, of course, last year won the Class 2A PIAA championship. But Cara Evans is a sophomore. She's a terrific singles player. She made it to the final of the District 2 Class 2A individual tournament last year, and her loss in that final was to Ilana Rosenthal, who was the PIAA champion. So no shame in losing that matchup. And she's come back this year and just been very impressive. You can read all about that in the Times-Tribune. We're going to have a nice little story on her and some notes leading into the postseason, which, believe it or not, Joe, is right around the corner here in girls tennis.
It's a quick season. So in girls volleyball, there's an interesting matchup between North Pocono and Abington Heights. North Pocono winning that one, Joby, to start the season. Mm-hmm. North Pocono's, obviously the expectations are they're supposed to have a big season. So this is a nice win for them.
Yeah. So Joe, again, one of the things when these make these schedules, before the seasons come out, the schedule makers, they use these matrix policies. And so they just kind of throw numbers in a hat and they assign you a number and out comes the schedule. And for the schedule makers to have North Pocono playing Abington Heights was a crapshoot here in the first matchup of the season, regular season anyway, in the Lackawanna League. These are two of the best teams, could probably finish first and second. Certainly they're two of the best teams in District 2 Class 3A. North Pocono was just a seasoned volleyball team. Sawyer DeLucy, we talked about her. She's been a setter now for 4 years. Mia Suma is an all-region player. She's going to be in contention for all state honors this year. They led North Pocono to the program's first District 2 championship last fall since 1982. So these girls can really play. And if you remember in the summer, Joe, when everyone else was on vacation, I was tracking the Electric City girls volleyball team that was playing in the Junior Olympic National Tournament. Both of those players were on that team from North Pocono, Sawyer and Mia. So this is a pretty good team. They're deep. They're talented. They're great coach in Alex Zero. And yeah, Heights put up a great fight. Again, I think Abington Heights is a team that's going to keep getting better as the year goes on. Same thing happened last year. They're still a very young team, a lot of sophomores in the starting lineup. So we'll see how those season plays now. But Joe, the way the schedule is in volleyball, they only play once now. They don't play that home and home anymore. So that match is behind both teams, and they're looking forward. And of course, the usual suspects will be in at it as well this year when you have Blue Ridge and Dunmore and Mountain View this year is going to be a real contender as well.
Absolutely, Joby. I'm going to keep the ball moving here. We have a lot to get to. So let's talk a little bit about week 3 in the high school football season. I thought it was a great week. Joby, you covered 3 games this week. I actually almost forgot about one, the Scranton game, Thursday Night Football, about 10 minutes before the show started. Which game do you want to start? I mean, we obviously talked about Susquehanna beating Dunmore with Weston earlier in the show. What game do you want to touch on next?
Well, it's funny. First, before we get into it, I want to just mention really quickly here that I had to run up to Susquehanna because that game got changed to a noon start. And as you have already pointed out, Joe, I live a little bit closer to Susquehanna than other members of the staff do to Dunmore. So I raced up to Susquehanna and caught that game on Saturday. And I'm glad I did because it was a very close game. And our good friend Sam Freeman covered the Scranton Prep and Canisius game, which was a heck of a battle between 2 private schools there. But okay, let's go back to Scranton High School. I wanted to see the Knights off to a 2-0 start this year. Looked pretty good. Brody Coyle at quarterback, coming off of that injury from last year. He looks real poised in the pocket. I thought the best part of his game on Thursday night against Pocono Mountain East was a late first half 2-minute drill where he took the Knights 80 yards down the field for a touchdown right before the buzzer in the first half, which really kind of put the game out of reach at that point. It really was one-sided here, Joe. It was 34-0 in the third quarter. Scranton's defense, while it took some hits in terms of injuries, Reese Spindler, who's an outstanding defensive end, left the game hobbled a little bit. We don't know his status for this week. But clearly, Scranton, as I pointed out in my story, was not distracted or looking ahead to this week's Bell game, which is going to be between Scranton and West Scranton on Friday at 5 o'clock at Scranton Veterans Memorial Stadium. I was very impressed with Scranton on both lines of scrimmage, offensive and defensive lines. Very physical, good size. I think, everything that people told me about Scranton, I got a chance to see it live in a game, and I came away thinking, boy, they put in the work. They look pretty good, and they always have game-breaking athletes. Memphis Shadow had a good game as well in that one. Then on Friday, I got a chance to see Mid-Valley play Old Forge in what was our game-face game of the week. And Jacob Lesher, we had him on as the Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week. He was a terrific guest here on the show. And TJ DiMattei, the quarterback from Old Forge, was also an Athlete of the Week. So this game featured 2 of the top players in the Lackawanna Football Conference. I was eager to see both of them live in person. And let me just say, Jacob Lesher is as impressive a player as he is a young man. And Joe, this game was nothing, probably in the blink of an eye, with Old Forge capitalizing on 2 Mid-Valley turnovers early in the first quarter. And the next thing you know, Jacob Lesher just said, well, that's very nice of you to take a lead, but we are winning the game at Mid-Valley. And Joe, because you're trying to do it too this year, we're doing a lot more video. Yeah. So as a general rule, and I have to change that now because of Jacob Lesher, to my Jacob Lesher rule, I series because generally we're pretty far away from the goal line. I don't expect huge plays often on the first play of a series. Well, he proved me wrong because I was caught off guard both times. He went 76 yards the first time and 81 yards the second time, and I was not ready and didn't get video. So my apologies to Jake Lesher and all the Mid-Valley fans out there. It swung the momentum of the game, and Mid-Valley went on to a 42-18 win. So pretty impressive performance by Mid-Valley, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They've got some real big-time hitters on Mid-Valley's defense. And just a side note, Joe, I made a mention of this on my Facebook page. It'll be Fawcett of the Times-Tribune, which you can follow. TJ DiMatteo, as he promised, after the game. Now, look, they lost 42-18. It was a very emotional time for the young man. He saw me standing at the middle of the field. I was there by myself, just standing there. He came up, tapped me on the shoulder, shook my hand, and just wanted to thank both me and you for having him on the Film Room podcast and honoring him as a Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week. And I said, I think that says a lot for the character of that young man.
Absolutely. He's a great kid. I covered him in week 1, obviously. We had him on the show. Funny that it was a battle. This week was a battle of our first 2 guests on the Film Room podcast, Jacob Lesher and TJ DiMatteo. And, you know, my experience with him, he's a great kid. I'm not surprised. Sometimes it's the little things like that. Quick story from last season. I wrote a feature on Scranton Prep's Max Schnippes, and he, right after losing his district championship match, he still came over to me, sought me out, shook my hand, and said, "Thank you so much for that story. It was great. Everyone enjoyed it. Thank you so much for writing that." And, you know, it's really moments like that where you realize, like, you know, why you do this and why you like to be involved with things like this.
Absolutely, Joe. And people may or may not know we're going through a tough time, you and I, and
Yep.
And most kids are very, very gracious. I'm very, very grateful for the recognition they get. I'm not so sure the public understands the kids are always grateful.
Yes. The kids have been great.
Hours that we're putting in and trying to do this, but we're going to keep fighting the good fight as long as anytime you have an experience like that after a game and you're kind of down, you understand that you're making an impact. So we're going to keep trying to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about my game.
Yeah, let's do that, Joe, because listen, Western Wayne and Wyoming area, as I believe where you were,
Yep.
2 top class 3A. I don't want to be a guy or anybody involved in having to predict the District 2 Class 3A playoff bracket moving forward because I think we've got 4 really state quality teams in 3A this year.
Absolutely. And, you know, speaking of Athlete of the Week candidates, one of them that I left out just so I could talk about him here, Josh Vinton, 179 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 28 carries, also adds a pick 6 that seals the win over a very good Wyoming area football team. Joby, you know it when, you know, every play ends in a big hit. You see the physicality up front. That's football, and these teams were really playing physical football. And at least this time around, Western Wayne, even as Wyoming area coach Randy Spencer pointed out after the game, gave hats off to Western Wayne, complimented their effort. It really came down to the physicality, and Western Wayne just won out. It would be interesting to see these teams if they meet up down the road, which they just might. That's going to be another great game, another great physical game. This had a lot of great moments. Just to touch on some of them, Archer Long getting a big interception before the end of the half, and then one play later, Vincent Silon, 37-yard end-around touchdown. Real turning point in the game, gives Western Wayne a 10-point lead going into the half. James Jimenez absolutely wreaking havoc in the backfield. I think he had at least 2 tackles for a loss in big moments, one on the 4th and 1 before the end of the half. Evan Dean came up with a big 4th quarter sack, and he also had a tackle for no gain. I mean, this is this is a Wyoming area team that just came off putting up 49 points on Dallas. Lidge Kellum running for 340 yards. It's funny when you consider it kind of a victory of Lidge Kellum still had a great game, I believe 152 yards, 21 carries, a couple touchdowns. Those are great numbers, but in comparison to the week before, Western Wayne had a great defensive game against him, stopped him 3 times behind the backfield, 3 times for no gain, and I believe 7 times for 1-yard gains. So they did what they could to contain Lidge Kellum. And you mentioned it before, Joby, but I'll mention it again. Sean Owens, maybe not the biggest numbers this week about, jumping up the stat sheet, 3 catches, 37 yards, a touchdown, but so many things. He impacts the game in so many ways. 41-yard kickoff return sets Western Wayne up for a touchdown drive. Big 3rd and 8 catch to extend a touchdown drive when Western Wayne's clinging to a 3-point lead. And then late in the 4th quarter, Wyoming area gets a big stop, hoping to get good field position, and Owens kicks it 69 yards to the Wyoming area 4-yard line, which ends up setting up Vinton's pick 6 to pretty much end the game. This was just a great game, Joby.
Joe, I'm glad you got a chance to see this game because, I saw Western Wayne play against Lackawanna Trail, and this is a program that has now, over the course of the last 6 or 7 years since Randy Wolf took over and is now carried on to the Shane Grodak tenure as head coach there. This is a physical football team that spends a lot of time in the weight room. They have big football players on the line of scrimmage. They have playmakers all across the field. I can remember back a couple of years ago when Lakeland had that terrific football team, and I thought Sean Owens was the key to Western Wayne giving Lakeland its best game of that season through the District 2 championship game. And he has certainly, again, Joe, it's an amazing thing about football, and some coaches get it. Some coaches still think they want to outcoach the room, but that's fine. I don't know what everybody's philosophy is on certain things, but in crucial situations, I like to give my best player the football, and because that player tends to try to, at the very least, make a play and has the ability to make a play. Yep. I know sometimes you want to get creative and use them as a decoy or whatnot, but listen, this is high school football. Let's get your playmakers some touches, and they can affect the game in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that even is Sean Owens is your punter. So
yeah.
He's a terrific athlete. Well, is that an ideal situation for Shane Grodak to put one of his best players as a punter where his legs are exposed and at risk of someone running into him in a compromising position? No, but he's his best punter and he changes the game. So he puts him back there and he lets him kick and takes his chances. Your best players have to have the ball at crucial times. I saw it a couple of times this weekend, with Weston Yannone doing it up there at Susquehanna. So there's nothing cute about it. Let him carry the ball. And the next thing you know, Susquehanna's got a touchdown and a win. Same thing here with even Josh Vinton.
Yep.
You've got a couple of weapons there at Western Wayne, but Josh Vinton's, he's going to be quite possibly the second best rusher in school history there when it's all said and done if he stays healthy. So, get him the ball. Give him the ball. Give your best players the ball, Joe.
Yep, exactly. And I'm sure you saw this week with Jacob Lesher. I mean, it's even when it looks like Vinton's going to be stopped in the backfield, he's falling forward and he's getting you three yards. And it's just like, oh, geez, he's always moving forward. And like you said, just get him the ball. He'll make it happen. 55-yard touchdown really got Western Wayne going. He gave all the credit to his line, but on that specific play, he was able to kind of bounce off, get to that second level, shed a tackler, and really put it in the minds of Western Wayne that we're winning this game. It was only a 7-2 lead at the time, but really felt like a big point, and obviously it was.
The one thing I do compliment all these running backs, and this is, again, easy football 101. There is a correlation. When you have good backs like this, Jacob Lesher, Josh Vinton, Weston Yannone from the quarterback position, Will McPartland at tailback for Scranton Prep, Lewis Baress, quarterback at Scranton Prep, outstanding. veteran offensive lines. When you have those players up front who can play, you're going to have good running backs become great running backs. Good quarterbacks become great quarterbacks with the protection. Those 5 guys up front. People always say, they don't get credit. Listen, they get credit with the numbers that the kids in the backfield are putting up. Just kind of look at it that way. Those kids know what they're doing and what kind of credit they get. But these are terrific units that are coached by some very good assistant coaches who keep them, well schooled on their fundamentals and their assignments. And that's why these running backs and these quarterbacks are able to put up these impressive offensive numbers here in the early going.
Absolutely, Joby. And 2 other games I definitely want to touch on here. Abington Heights beating Dallas 30-13. Dominic Vergnetti, 103 yards rushing, 25 carries. Sean Theodore, 5 catches, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nick Bradley, 198 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, added 2 touchdowns on the ground. This is a team that has really, I don't want to say turned it around. They just lost in week 1, and now they really look like they're rolling. They beat Dallas by 17. That's a good Dallas team.
Yeah, Joe, and look, Abington Heights, we expected some big things out of this team this year, and I think people sometimes when you're playing or opening in week 1 against a team from outside of our area, we don't have enough working knowledge of the quality of opponent that is. And,
right.
And East Stroudsburg South, from all accounts, gave Scranton Prep all they could handle in a scrimmage earlier in the year. And I think East Stroudsburg South is a pretty good football program historically. And so there's no shame in losing that opening game by Abington Heights. And it's certainly not a time for panic.
No.
If you have a veteran team coming back, guys who've played in, crucial games and have kind of experience and the ability that Nick Bradley does at the quarterback position. So, yeah, Abington Heights has, quote unquote, turned things around, 2-1. And boy, what a nice setup this is, because another team that had to bounce back pretty quickly is Valley View. If you remember back, Joe, handled pretty, had a tough loss against Scranton Prep in week 1, 33-0, where things didn't really pan out the way Valley View had hoped on both sides of the ball in terms of production. I mean, maybe, expectations were Prep was favored in that game, but I don't think Valley View coaches were happy with the level of intensity, the certain level of execution that Valley View came into that game and had, coming off a scrimmage against Southern Columbia where they were really encouraged by their team. So then you have to come back from that loss and kind of put that out of your mind and play Crestwood and Wilkes-Barre area in back-to-back weeks. And Valley View answered the bell against Crestwood. And then this past week, boy, what a great and exciting finish to that game. It looked like Wilkes-Barre area had the game all sewn up, and we had some big turnovers late in the game and led to touchdowns. And next thing you know, Valley View's coming away with an exciting 25-20 victory. So Valley View hosts Abington Heights on Friday, Joe. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, that's going to be a big game. See, this is why we work so well together, Joby. That was the next thing I was going to go to. It's just like, we're right there. So
yeah, Joe, don't pull out anything where I'm reading your mind. Okay, let's just move on. Let's call it lucky, Joe.
That's right. So just to fill in a little bit, Brady Skeen gets a key fourth quarter interception, and that one sets up the game, what ended up being the game-winning touchdown for Valley View. Gianni Marino gets an interception to seal it. Those are 2 of Valley View's 3 interceptions. Preston Reed, 115 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown on 19 carries. Zach Kowinski, 111 yards, touchdown, 16 carries, added 2 passing touchdowns. I mean, this is just a big win for Valley View. And like you said, coming back from that tough loss to Scranton Prep in the opener, Valley View's kind of putting it together.
Yeah, Joe, and the thing here is, whether we believe it or not, it's early in the season, but we are in week 4 now of a 10-week regular season.
Yep.
So games become more magnified in their importance. Now, there are a lot of playoff spots available in District 2 this year. Still, it's getting late early, Joe, as they say.
That's right. That's right. And one thing I wanted to also touch on, Joby, is the Lackawanna Football Conference has had a strong opening, especially with crossovers. Just to add a couple more, Lackawanna Trail with a 35-0 victory over Berwick, and the Holy Cross Crusaders, Joby. 24-20 over Hanover area. Holy Cross, we look to futures bright. Those are just a few to add to the list of the success of the Lackawanna Football Conference so far.
Yeah, and these non-conference games, Joe, and I'm glad you brought this up because I'm going to have a little bit of a nugget in this week's high school football notebook about, this is the first year of a 2-year cycle in the PIAA, and this is the new schedule for this cycle. They'll repeat this next year with just the sites being reversed in most cases. Now, some of these games, like Delaware Valley playing in Florida, won't be on the schedule. And I think Delaware Valley also has a game in Long Island later in the year. They'll have to be replaced. But anyway, yeah, so there's I really kind of dive into how good the teams are doing from the Lackawanna Football Conference in these games outside the conference. And by that, I mean you have to be either in the Wyoming Valley Conference in District 2 or District 4 or those teams in Florida. And I think the number is, Joe, and don't quote me while I'm on the air here. I don't have notes. I do these things off the cuff. All right. I'm not one of these guys who sits here with a bunch of papers I have to shuffle through, a lot like you do on a daily basis, Joe. So I think it's 37 total wins in 3 weeks in non-conference games. I could be wrong on that. I could be overestimating it, but it is somewhere in that neighborhood. And really, the teams, whether it's the matchups or it's just a real solid year in the LFC, and things are going to play out as we move forward. But remember, Joe, these non-conference games are going to be few and far between as we get into league play starting this weekend. Division I has, I believe, 4 league games this Lackawanna Football Conference, highlighted by that Abington Heights Valley View game. But don't forget on Saturday, Joe, Scranton Prep's going to be at Delaware Valley weekend. And Joe, I know it's not necessarily the game of the week based upon the records, Prep being 2-1, Delaware Valley 0-3.
Yep.
But Delaware Valley is the defending champ in Division I. Scranton Prep finished second last year. Its only loss in the regular season was to Delaware Valley. And look, these two programs, Delaware Valley's won, I believe, 8 District 2 championships since we moved to 6 classifications, and Scranton Prep has won 6. So these are the 2 big programs in the Lackawanna Football Conference going head-to-head on Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
That's a massive game. I was actually gonna mention that these, obviously we've discussed 2 teams who built some robust out of conference games into their schedule. Delaware Valley, we always get used to the first 3 games are against very tough non-conference opponents. So like you said, I couldn't have said it better. Scranton Prep suffering their first loss over the weekend, but against a great team. So this is going to be an awesome matchup this weekend.
Joe, Delaware Valley now 0-3 for the 4th consecutive season.
Yep.
Okay. After 3 weeks. The last 3, they went on to win the District 2 championship. Okay. So don't sleep on 0-3.
No.
Prep 2-1. First of all, coming off a week where it played Loyola Blakefield, which is a very good team down in Maryland. This Canisius team, if you had read my story on Saturday previewing the game, a couple of Division I prospects on the offensive and defensive lines, or I should say Division I commits on the offensive and defensive lines, and a 4-star running back who's only a sophomore. Look, Scranton Prep needs this. This is what Scranton Prep, if its ultimate goal is to win a state championship, this is the level of play it's got to have during its non-conference schedule. Okay. And anybody who's going to be critical of Scranton Prep losing that game is getting too far ahead of themselves. Scranton Prep is still the best team in the Lackawanna Football Conference right now, okay, as of this day. Now, we'll find out what happens on Saturday afternoon when Scranton Prep takes on Delaware Valley. But if you're going to marginalize that game because Delaware Valley's going through, that is also a critical mistake.
That's right, Joby. That's right. So we've got a jam-packed weekend coming up in high school football. Game Face wrap, 4 pages. Every week on Friday we'll be out in the Times-Tribune. Pick up a copy. And Joby, I think we've kind of touched on what will be in it. But you tell me, what are we expecting this week from your game face?
Oh, so listen, I have a very interesting story coming up in Game Face. I can't wait to write this one. It's the Bell game.
That's right.
The Bell game preview. You love the Bell game preview.
Oh, I love the Bell game. You know it, Joby. Used to go all the time. Yeah.
Scranton, by the way, looking to make history in that series. If no teams in Scranton, it used to be three schools that used to battle for the Bell Trophy. It used to be West Scranton, Scranton Central, Scranton Tech. Clearly, when Scranton Central, Scranton Tech merged and made Scranton High School. Since that season, 1990, no school, either Scranton or West Scranton, has won 6 times in a row. Scranton has 5 wins in a row going into this matchup. 5 o'clock start, don't forget, Joe, so it's an early showing.
That's right. That's right. Don't miss it. I might be at that one, Joby. Tentatively, I am at that game, so I would be excited for that one as long as I'm still going. But I think that probably wraps it up for high school football. Anything else you want to touch on, Joby?
I just want to quickly make mention of a couple of things, Joe, and I promise you I will not be too long-winded. North Pocono 3-0, piggybacking off that out-of-conference success. All 3 wins against Wyoming Valley Conference opponents to start the season. North Pocono is one of those teams that people were kind of interested in seeing how it responds this year. Young quarterback, I believe Chase Zimmerman's only a sophomore. Joe Brisky's only a position. But North Pocono does have some experience up front, so they're seeing some success early on here in the season. And so I would keep my eye on North Pocono moving forward here after that very good start to the season. And Wallenpaupack beat Honesdale in the Wayne Pike Shrine Bowl, Joe. That's significant. It was the first loss for Honesdale of the season, and it put Wallenpaupack and head coach Matt Naraki at 2-1 in his first season. And this week, North Pocono plays Wallenpaupack. So Coach Naraki is going to be going against his alma mater here in week 4 of the high school football season.
It's a big week in high school football, Joby. Pretty excited for it. Pretty excited.
You can tell I've done some homework, Joe.
Yeah, clearly. Exactly. Well, Joby, I know you like to bust me about Michigan, and I know you you were at Susquehanna during the game, so Michigan lost, just to let you know, to a very good Texas team. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
So you had a very, very difficult weekend. I mean, Michigan loses at noon of all things on a Saturday, so that ruins your entire afternoon. But you did go and ruin your hearing by going to a concert on Saturday night, and then had to endure. Had already lost with Green Bay on Thursday night, and you lost your quarterback.
Exactly.
So that's got to be terrifying for you,
Joby. It's not great. You know, you wait for you get excited for the football season. You wait for week 1, and then it's not just you lose. Fine, you lose to a good Eagles football team in Brazil. I'm fine with that. Then with 10 seconds left, Jordan Love gets hurt. And I was already just saying well, the season's over. When does the Lakers preseason begin?
Yeah, but Joe, here's the thing. At least you have Malik Willis, who had an outstanding college career, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And did Green Bay, I believe the rumor is, sign the big red dog, Sean Clifford?
Well, yes. And I don't know. I've
well,
heard.
Joe, by all accounts that I've read throughout the years, Sean Clifford is a very accomplished quarterback from Penn State University.
The Cincinnati Kid. That's right, Joe.
Okay, so listen, maybe things are going to be okay. You may not remember this, Joe, because in 1999, Trent Green got hurt in a preseason game against the San Diego Chargers, and a young stock boy led the St. Louis Rams to the Super Bowl championship. So all hope cannot be lost with one loss.
Joby, that was amazing. That was amazing. I don't know how you just worked in the Rams into that conversation. That was amazing.
I got a million of them, Joe.
I believe it. So, well, it's an MCL sprain, so just kind of have to hold out for a few weeks for Jordan Love to get back. Obviously the Packers are a good team. just hold off for a little while and, hopefully get back on track once Jordan Love gets back. Joby, not a great start for your Rams.
Well, listen, here's the thing, Joe. I'm sorry that the Rams couldn't do you any favors by knocking off Detroit, which I believe is overhyped. We often get one of those teams every year. Look, the Rams pretty much were playing a JV offensive line out there last night, and lost Puka Nacua with early in the game. He's probably lost for the season too. So the Rams, look, Sean McVay does it to me all the time. He is the smartest man in the room by far. He's a lot smarter when it comes to offense than me. And I'm never going to debate that. But his time management drives me up a wall. And sometimes he just, you have a first and goal from the one, high school football, junior football, college football, USFL, XFL football, arena football. You run the ball 3 straight times up the middle. You just do.
That's right.
I mean, doesn't anybody learn from Pete Carroll throwing the ball to a Patriot defender when you have Marshawn Lynch in the backfield? He ran a speed sweep, which technically is a running play. But as soon as you do that, as soon as you go to an outside running play, you're going to get a holding call. It's just going to happen.
Right.
And now, so instead of being 3 feet from a touchdown, now you're 11 yards from it. I mean, come on, Sean. It was first and goal, second and goal. Run another play up the middle. God, touchdown. And then, it is what it is, Joe. Look, 0-1, 16 more to go. Let's just hope it's not 0-17 when it's all said and done.
That's right. And Joby, so I got in a survivor pool, last man standing pool for the first time this year.
Joe, you often ask yourself if you're going to be the last man standing on the weekend. So go ahead.
That is true. Well, let me tell you something. I knew once I got into one of these things that I would lose in week 1. I knew it. And
you did.
So I looked at all the games, and there just seemed like there was one obvious pick. Just the one. Bengals over Patriots. Well, Joby, we know how that one went.
Yeah, it didn't work out, especially since Joe Burrow's got that Scooby-Doo Fred look with that bleached blonde hair. Look, Joe, don't underestimate the Patriots. I hate to say it this way because obviously Bill Belichick is such a highly respected coach, but we are in a different era of professional athlete. And I just think at some point, everyone overstays their welcome. I know I certainly have it in a lot of the things that I do in my life. And I just think you breathe a little fresh air into the coaching room and you bring a guy like Gerard Mayo, who's clearly a guy who's played some intense football and he kind of just understands the younger player a little bit better. I think it's just a change. And I think the Patriots have some good players. I'm never going to root for the Patriots.
No.
Don't get me wrong.
No, of course.
Because how ever forgive them for stealing that Super Bowl from the Rams, not once, but twice.
That's true. That's true, Joby. So look, we'll try to recover next week. I've got 5 fantasy leagues. I don't know. I'm just doing too much, man.
Well, Joe, you got to keep kind of trying to juggle the best you can.
That's it. So,
Joe, read the room. We're hanging in there.
That's it. That's all you could do. So, Joby, I think we have covered a lot this episode. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
Just lastly, let's figure with this, Joe. I don't know what your concert tour is for this weekend or your obligations are for the Grunge Society of America, but and for anybody out there who doesn't know Joe as well as I do, he's a huge movie buff. I don't think there's been a new release in about a month. So, and Marvel isn't churning out any more movies. So Joe's kind of been in a little bit of a withdrawal. Anything on your movie docket coming up here, Joe, that I should be looking forward to as you and Rebecca Kivak continue to review these movies?
So, Joby, that's a good point. So, how do you feel about Beetlejuice, Joby?
Well, Joe, I wasn't a real big fan of it in 1988, so I don't know how I'm going to feel about it in 2024. I liked Michael Keaton back then, so I watched it, but hey, it could be good. Winona Ryder, I believe, is very popular out of Stranger Things. and she was real popular in the 80s, so it could be good, I guess. And don't forget the mother there she's one of the big stars of Schitt's Creek, right?
That's true. That is true. Catherine
I
O'Hara.
like that show.
Yep. Oh, it's a great show. It's a great show, Joby.
Didn't she leave her kid at home?
Yeah. Kevin! That's right. That's right, Joby. So we reviewed Beetlejuice. I'll actually be posting that shortly. It's a good movie for people who like that sort of thing. I'm not a big Tim Burton fan, but you know what? I didn't mind Beetlejuice. I think they did a real nice job. So I'll be posting that shortly. And it also had a big weekend at the box office, Joby, $110 million. So I think, which is probably, the way it should happen. I think we'll be getting a Beetlejuice.
Yeah, but if that is said, doesn't he go back into the genie's bottle if you say it 3 times?
That is true. Well, it comes out.
I don't remember. It was 1988 or 89 when it first came out, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Well, you're remembering well. It brings them into the world and it takes them out of it. So, that's what we have coming up, and we'll keep it going. You could find all of this at the Times-Tribune.com. You can find all of Joby's stories and all of our stories at the Times-Tribune.com/sports. And, follow along for this weekend in high school football. We'll get the games and the stats right up there late Friday night. So go to the website. It's all there.
All right, Joe, great job this weekend on posting video highlights too. Remember, folks, we're trying to do everything. It's a digital world. Get in it.
That's right, Joby. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time. I know I'm holding you up from doing more work.